Welcome to In a World with Real Media. I'm your host, Brad Burrow. In this podcast, we'll dive into the lives of the most successful people in business. We'll learn how they overcame adversity, took advantage of opportunities, and learned from their experiences. Learn from our experts, get inspired, then go live your story. It's In a World with Real Media. Hello, welcome to the In a World with Real Media podcast. I'm going to have you do that at the end, by the way. So
all right.
We're going to do your movie voice. It's probably get you a lot of clients. But I'm with Tim Power. I'm going to read just a little bit of his bio. But we have a long history together, and this is going to be a fun podcast. So he's an experienced attorney practicing since 1985. Power Law Group primarily performs legal work in the workers' compensation and personal injury areas. His firm focuses on helping those who've been injured on the job or in auto or truck accidents. He's the owner of Power Law Group and speaks at legal seminars on workers' compensation and auto accident claims, and represents individuals, not insurance companies or corporations. So, Tim, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming in here. I'm excited about it. I'm going to tell everybody, you know, we have quite a history together. We haven't really talked in a while, but just so the audience knows, we used to play basketball together, and we had a group of guys that were, I can remember back some of the games. You know, you remember some of the games. We had a really talented group of basketball players, all different backgrounds, you know, Pulford and Kendall and Mike, you know, all these guys that I just remember we'd go into these leagues, and you probably remember that over at the Dome. You remember playing over at the Dome?
Oh, yeah.
And we would play against these younger guys that see all these old guys walking. You know, we're probably in our late 30s, 40s, something like that.
Yep.
And, you know, we'd walk out there. We'd look like they just picked us up off the side of the road.
True.
And we would, most of the time, win the league. I mean, there weren't many times that we didn't win the league and win the championship of the league. And it was so satisfying, you know, to just beat those young guys and see them just like, how are you guys so good? You remember those days?
Well, part of it was Brad. Brad had a great three-point shot. And in the day, I met Brad when he had a ponytail, and we were playing pickup basketball. And I thought, well, you know, I can stay with this guy. And he went right by me a few times, and I realized what a fantastic basketball player he was. We joined up with a number of other guys that we talked about, and it was so true. We walked in as the Bad News Bears, and we walked out kicking ass.
Yeah, we did. Were you with the team where we won the tournament championship out in Blue Valley that one time?
Yeah, that was the first time that we met. I still have that shirt from that, and then you guys all signed it for me, as a matter of fact. Yes, I was.
Do you remember that? So I drive by there on occasion. There's an old gym that's still there that they had that tournament in, and we went into that. I remember Kendall was a great player. You know, he was a great shooter. He's kind of bigger guy, and Michael was a great player too. I don't think Mike was with us on that, and Pulford, but I remember that game, the championship game, and we were playing. It was the same thing I just described. I don't know if you remember that, but this team thought they were just going to walk all over us, and they're, you know, walking to a championship. We're like, no, that ain't going to happen. You know, it's like we had the best game, and I think I had a pretty good game that day. But Pulford and we all just banded together, and it was like, it felt like we shocked the world, you know, even though it was just a little tournament. But that was amazing. I'll never forget that.
There's a big crowd there as well, and it was kind of a symbiotic relationship in that game. Everybody knew what their role was, you know, and everybody did what they were supposed to do. But I would agree, we walked in, and there are moments in your life where you think, oh my gosh, this is really good, and that was one of the moments. I remember it. I showed my son the picture of that championship. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And with all the I still have it with all your signatures on it.
Yeah, well, I need to see that, man. That was fun. Anyway, that was one of the things that, you know, I feel like those days, you know, I looked forward to Saturday mornings when we would play pickup basketball for 2 hours every Saturday. man, I was in the best shape of my life, and just enjoyed the competition. And we really took it serious. I mean, we wanted to win. I don't know if you remember those Saturdays.
Oh yeah, everybody would. We would argue about what the score was, fouls were, and then somebody would go home upset because they lost 2 or 3 games, which is hopefully we're past that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so tell me a little bit about your career, what you do, how that works. I mean, I kind of want to dive into that a little bit and help people understand kind of your background and what you actually do.
Well, I'm personal injury and work comp, so let's go back to the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, I went to Rockhurst, and part of Rockhurst mantra is service for others. And in my senior year, I had to do a service project. So service became part of my life, doing things for others. And so when I went to law school, I really wanted to help others. I graduated from law school, and when I got out, I wanted to help people. And I know that sounds maudlin, but it was true. So I picked an area that I knew that I could help people out, which would be typically auto crashes and work comp. I met a lawyer who became a judge. He hired me for 2 years. I lived in a closet for 2 years on one case, earning like $10 an hour. But I was so enthralled with the practice of law and helping people. That's where I started.
Right.
Eventually, started moving on my own with my law partner, Frank Allison, and then eventually on my own. So for me, the practice of law is aspirational as opposed to transactional. I'm interested in people's stories. So when someone comes into my office, I'll go through the things that they want to talk about, the accident itself, but then I'll get a backstory on everybody. So my interest really is in helping people get through a very difficult time in their life. I hope that helps.
Yeah, yeah. That's got to be a challenging industry to be in, right? I mean, we see so many people doing it right now. There's a lot of the big guys are spending millions of dollars in advertising to try to get these deals. How has that been for you? I mean, people find you pretty easy?
That's funny you should say that. There is probably more advertising going on right now in Kansas City on personal injury and work comp than in my entire lifetime. And you're right.
Right.
We're talking about multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns. So all of my clients come from 2 sources as a general: my own clients or other lawyers. And for a while there, Brad, I was in my 40s. I was thinking, maybe I don't want to do this. I don't want to compete with all of these people.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I'm just going to wait to see if people show up. And since then, they keep showing up.
What is it about I didn't know this about you, kind of why you got into this, but what is it about helping people? There's something good about it, right? I mean, it feels good to see. I mean, you're changing the course of somebody's life potentially.
Yeah, I have an opinion on this, okay?
Yeah.
I think all good trial lawyers come from trauma. They've had trauma in their life. I'm not saying I'm a good trial lawyer, but I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and I think that they were interested in the 3 A's in Johnson County: appearance, acquisition, and achievement, and they were more interested in their social status than anything else. I rebelled against that. So for me, that was the starting point, which was I really wanted to help others. I think Rockhurst helped out with that a little bit, but it was always in my DNA. And then when I got out of law school, I knew what I wanted to do. So I needed to figure an area where I could help people out.
Do you find that people that come to you are, they're obviously looking at who's going to represent me, or I've got this problem, or whatever it is. How do you stand out? I mean, they could go to the big names and, the guys that are spending money and whatever, but I would think that having somebody that you can work with that owns the firm feels a lot better to me. I don't know. Is that right?
You would be right. I mean, when you go to a large law firm, like some of those that advertise, they'll have a paralegal that'll call you up and bring you in, and then you only talk to the paralegal. You never really talk to the attorney. There's stratification. I'd say that 90% of the communication comes from me. I meet with them. I talk with them.
Yeah.
I would say that 95% of the conversations always go through me. And I think they like that a lot. I think the other thing is when they come in, I spend a lot of time with them. I'm not come in, sign them up, let them go. I don't want to brag on myself, but I think I'm authentic. I'm extremely transparent about who I am and what I do. And so I think that helps.
Yeah.
I give them my cell phone. People will call me in the middle of the night still. My wife does not like that at all.
I was going to ask you, so what's DJ think about
She does
that?
not like that at all.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, that's what you have to do when you help people. You have to be personable. And I think people really like that. I think also people have an inherent, how should I put this? They have some transparency about whether you're full of BS or not. Whether you're there to help or not, they get a vibe from you. And I think that's probably what sells the most.
They can read. They can, just by spending a little time with you, they know that you're authentic.
Yeah, I think the other thing is I tell them the why as opposed to the what. Why are we in this system? Why does it work this way? Then we'll go to the what. Once I give them the why, then the what will go forward from there. So I think that helps quite a bit because most of them don't know anything. They walk in there scared. They don't want to file a lawsuit. They don't want to make a claim against their employer. And they just need somebody to guide them through the process. And I think the why is always important. The why in the world is more important than the what.
Right.
So for me, that works a lot.
Yeah. Can you talk about, one of the things I think from a business model standpoint, what you do, I mean, you're taking a lot of risk, right? I mean, it's like we'll put the work in up front in hopes that we have a successful outcome. And if we don't, I'm assuming that's your business model, right? And most of the people, the attorneys in this area isn't in a contingency-based type approach.
Yeah, let's talk about it. A contingency base is a poor man's lawyer. We're not on an hourly basis. You come to me, and I'm betting on your claim for a certain percentage, and I'm going to advance money and cost and do the attorney's fees, and you're betting on the outcome. So it's a high-risk, high-reward business. I think for a lot of people, that is not a model that they should live by because a lot of people are risk adverse. All my clients, since I've been practicing law since 1985, have all been contingencies. There's a reason for that. I had a few clients where I was doing divorces and some other stuff to start, and I was doing hourly work. And I felt bad keeping time, people's time. That was always a big no-no for me. I was like, I don't really want to spend an hour on this timesheet. So that was one of the reasons why. But I liked the idea of if I do the work and I do it right, I'll get a reward. So there you go.
Is that that from a business standpoint that there's some challenges that come with that? Cash flow would be one, right?
Yeah, I think when you have a contingency law firm, you have to have a large bank account. You can't ask your client, hey, look, I'm going to send you to Dr. X and it's going to cost me $5,000. They're not going to be able to pay that. So when you get started as a practice of law, you better have either a loan or a lot of money. So yes, it's a high risk, high reward. Fortunately, I've been really successful and I have enough money now where I never have to worry about that. We always have enough. But that is a big, big, big deal. And you have to be willing to take that risk.
So from a client standpoint, you might send them to see a specialist or get a second opinion or something like that. And you would have to pay for that as their attorney up front, right?
Or yeah.
Or most of the time, I don't know. I'm
No,
just guessing. I don't know anything about the business. So
No, you're correct. We have a running cost advance. Those are things that we've done. Typically, it's $100,000 plus a month. That's an ongoing balance. I think the other thing that people need to understand in terms of the money part is that if you try a PI case, an auto crash claim, a minimum of $10,000, closer to $20,000 of your own money. On a work comp claim, a minimum of $1,000, maybe a high end of $10,000. So when you walk into that, you know you're going to be spending quite a bit of money.
yeah, and then that's risk.
It's an extreme amount of risk.
You don't know that that's coming back.
Right. I mean, if you go try a case and you lose and you spent $20,000, you're eating $20,000.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention your time.
Yeah.
Right?
My time isn't, I never get focused on that, Brad. I never get focused on the money because then I don't get focused on the person and the outcome. And that's more important than anything else. once I get caught up in the money or the time, then I become transactional and not aspirational. And
Yeah.
I have to walk myself away from that quite often.
Yeah. So is that like a conscious thing you do every day? It's like today, look in the mirror. I'm going to help somebody today.
Yes, it is. I gave a speech to the Kansas Trial Lawyers Association last year on work comp, and one of the things I mentioned to them is some of these people in this room are transactional and some of you are aspirational. You can be both, but don't lie to yourself. If you are aspirational, you know that you're probably not going to make as much money as other people that are transactional.
Yeah.
I know that. So, yes, I have to constantly remind myself that this is about them and not about me. And if it's about me, then I shouldn't be in the practice of law.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, like we're marketing, that's kind of our video and marketing and that side of things. So you're really focused on a lot on referrals, it sounds like, and then building relationships with other attorneys. Is that kind of what I heard you say?
Absolutely. Almost all of my clients come from prior clients, existing clients, other attorneys. I don't market as well as other lawyers.
Yeah.
I just expect that things will work out well, and somehow they have. It's a bad business model, Brad. I'm just going to tell you that.
Sounds like there's some faith in there, though.
There is. Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
After 10 years of seeing people coming in all the time and all the referrals,
Yeah.
I just I'm working on faith. You're right. I'm working on the basis that I'm not going to market my business as hard as they would. There's a couple of reasons for that as well. One of them is I have children. And when you have children, you have to balance out that. That's number one. I think the other thing is
Work-life balance type
absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
I think the other thing is that I don't want to be the lawyer that spent his whole life worrying about trial work and what a great trial lawyer he was, and not being able to play basketball with Brad Burrow, or not being able to coach my basketball teams, or do other things in life that I like. And
Yeah.
we have a high rate of addiction in the lawyer field, alcoholism, addiction, divorces.
Yeah.
It comes with the practice, and you have to be very self-conscious of that, self-talk to yourself a lot. You need to develop positive habits. One of my positive habits is exercise, because for
Yeah.
me, that takes away the stuff. And as you well know, you're a little high-strung in the day, and I'm still a little high-strung in the day, so that helps quite a bit.
I need to exercise a lot more.
Yeah, it really helps me.
It's interesting. So you're a soccer guy too, right?
That's we haven't talked in a while. I tore my ACL when I was in my 30s or 40s, and then I did pick up basketball until my 50s. Then I ripped my Achilles tendon.
Oh.
Yeah, and had surgery. And so from that point on, I've been a fitness nut. So in the day, by the way, I was a runner. I went Hospital Hill and did
Yeah.
all that stuff before I knew you.
Yeah.
So it's just become, what's that old saying? Inspiration gets you there. Habit will keep you there. And I think that's true.
So just to give it a little sidetrack here. So we had a sporting KC kid living with us for 2 years. We were a host home for him, and he made it to the second team, and then he's on a D1 scholarship now at Tulsa. But so we've gotten into soccer a lot more since he's kind of been a part of our family and learned that. But he really has this. He's a defender. I mean, he's fearless. Watching him play is just amazing. He'll go up against anybody, and so we're hoping that he ends up back at Sporting at some point. But my point in all that is that sports, I feel like sports is something that we can all learn from. Like my middle son, Briley, he was a pitcher at Avila. He pitched for 4 years, in AIA. He was a starter his whole career there. And just the adversity that he went through and learned things from. My oldest son, played soccer all through high school. My youngest son played all the sports. So it's like I look back at sports and I just, I think I learned so many things from that. And I bet that's the same with you. I mean, even in a situation where there's gamesmanship in a trial or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think. Well, I have a son that played in high school, and he went to a community college and played out there, played soccer. I coached high school basketball at 2 schools for 2 years. So I'm going to rip off
Pick
of that
and
a little.
roll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
rip off of that. I think sports is a means to learn a couple of things: effort, attitude, adversity, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But Coach Power has a rule because I think we need to have Plan B. So I'll give you the Coach Power rule.
Yeah.
Rule number 1: you're all going to graduate from high school. Rule number 2: you're all going to get a job. Rule number 3: none of you are going to make money playing sports. So enjoy it, but you better have Plan B. And part of that
Yeah.
is when I coached at a local high school where it was a lot of adversity, I wanted them to know that they needed to have a Plan B because they all thought they were going to go to the league. They're not.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that sports is it reveals character, and you can tell that in a pickup game.
Yeah.
About the guy that fouls the heck out of you and won't call it.
Yeah.
There's a.
I would have never done that. I'm not sure who you're talking
Ah,
about.
yeah. I remember downtown on the 3-on-3. I was there, and you were an interesting human being that day.
Yeah. Those were my young. I was fired up
Well,
back in those days.
I don't think people know Brad that well. Brad, he. I don't know if I can use it. He's a hell of an athlete. He was fantastic at right and left. Had a great 3-point shot. Understood basketball, but he had a lot of moxie. He was never intimidated by anybody. I mean, nobody. And that was always astounding to me. Is if somebody was going to mouth off, Brad was going to be right there in their face, letting them know that was not going to happen. So
Got me in trouble a few times too.
I don't think so. I think that just shows you that, hey, I'm going to stand up for myself.
Yeah, I've talked to my boys about that. It's like that attitude. It's like, Briley specifically pitched in college. And when you get in college athletics, especially in AI, there's a lot of this going on all the time. Benches and all this stuff, and he developed that attitude too. It's like, you're not going to intimidate me. And by the way, next time you come up, you're going to get one high inside. You better be ready.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it's gamesmanship a little bit. I kind of have a little bit in my business side too. It's like I just don't like people taking advantage of us. And my team, I will stand up for my team. Somebody gets on somebody on my team, or I felt like they got treated wrong, then I'm going to stand up. That's just who I am, man. I can't help it.
Well, you know what that is? That's called aspirational, right?
Yeah.
It's not a me world; it's a we world. So think of that as an aspirational trait that you have, and it's in your DNA. And you have to ask your son who pitched in college. Obviously, he's got it too.
Now, the funny thing about that is all the years of Little League and all that stuff. But you think I'm like that? You should see Tracy.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, you don't want to mess with her on a Little League field or mess with her son. She's going to stand up. She's the original honey badger.
I don't want to be around that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're in a war, who would you rather have with you?
Yeah, I would say I want you in my foxhole right away because I know that you're going to protect everybody and not yourself. You're not going to run out of that ditch. Yeah, you would be a guy that I would want in my foxhole.
And I think the same with you. As far as if I had a legal problem, I would want somebody like you or you to be handling that. I think that's a great. I mean, you want somebody that's going to fight for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Part of that is, I think the other part that lawyers don't do a real good job with is give them a reality check. No, that's not going to work. Yes, this will work.
So one of the questions that I had for you, I'm kind of just going down the list of things that I'm really curious about. One of the things I was going to ask you is, so let's say that somebody has something happen. Probably a car wreck or a truck wreck. I don't know if workers' comp is something we want to talk about on this as well. But what are like some key things that we need to do? Like, say I get rear-ended. Man, I've seen some crazy stuff lately, by the way. Have you seen the cars that are pulling in front of trucks and slamming on their brakes trying to get hit? It's crazy what people are doing, but what do we need to do?
Well, first of all, we do have a lot of crazy people out there driving, and a lot of it's because they're distracted. I'd say that when somebody
On
gets
the
hit,
phone.
they get hit at 50 miles per hour and rear-ended. They're distracted. So when people get in an auto wreck, the couple of things they ought to do, an auto crash, they ought to first of all take pictures
Okay.
of the accident scene. I think the second thing that they ought to do is contact their insurance company, because in Kansas, at least, they have medical insurance that they need to go through. I think the third thing they need to do is, if you're hurt, go see a physician, because there are certain rules that insurance companies follow. If you wait 6 months and you come back and say you've got a herniated disc, it's a hard sell. And then I think the other thing is you might want to contact a lawyer just to help them out. Couple of things you should definitely not do. You will get a call from the insurance company, typically the person that caused the wreck, and they will want to take a tape-recorded statement from you. And you should never give a tape-recorded statement, because it doesn't help you. They're paying you no amount of money. They just want to get your story down so later on they can use that against you.
Yeah.
They'll send you medical authorizations that are blank so they can get all your records. They're not paying you any amount of money. Do not sign that. So those are a couple of things.
Yeah. Who would know that? Have you seen the I don't know. I just saw this the other day. There was a car that pulled in front of a truck. Most of the trucks now have the cameras in the front, so they're recording everything.
Yes, they do.
But this car pulls in, like swerves in, slams on the brakes, and the truck gets stopped and like misses, there's like 10 feet. Then the car goes in reverse and backs into the truck. And then they get out, and they pull up and get out, and they all start taking pictures. And it's like fraud. I mean, they're trying to have that trucking company or whoever have to pay them a bunch of money.
Well, I'm gonna give you a big no on that one. Okay. First, in work comp, there's no value to that. You don't get to pick your doctor. You get 2/3 of your gross wage.
Yeah.
They limit the amount of money you get. I would say I'm in my 41st year practicing law. I've never seen a fraud claim. Because if it's a fraud,
really?
Never, ever. Because people, the ones that I see at least,
Yeah.
okay, the first thing they say is, I never wanted to sue this. I know all these people get all of these money and they're making up all these claims. So this kind of things that you're talking about here is
Yeah.
the exception and not the rule, and we make that the exception, not the rule. We use the word accident. Accident comes from insurance companies. So when I write letters, it's not an accident. An accident indicates that there's no fault. What it really is a preventable automobile crash. It's not an
Yeah.
accident. Accident, again, is this nomenclature that they try to use to get us, oh, yeah, there's nobody at fault here, or something like that. So I got a different view on that.
There's almost always somebody at fault, right? I mean, is it ever not the case?
Yes. I mean, there'll be what are called acts of God. Somebody has a heart attack and something like that.
Meteor lands right in front
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost all preventable automobile crashes are due to fault.
Yeah. What do you think about? So one of the things I had written down here, sorry, I was looking down, but there's a lot of crazy attorneys in the PI space. I mean, we laugh at the commercials, that are out there. You have the guys that are trying to be more, we're the guy, and show us in the courtroom. We've got this many cases. Then you have the guy with the monkey, and the monkey talks. We won't name names, but you have everything, and they've got to be going for different markets and stuff. I mean, what do you think about when you see some of that stuff?
I'm concerned.
Do you have a monkey?
I do not have a monkey.
Okay, good.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned for a couple of reasons. One
Yeah.
is that it diminishes people who are really hurt,
Yeah.
and it leads people to believe that people are getting a large amount of money for nothing. And certain law firms will say, I get X amount of money from this lawyer or something like that. I think the other thing that I'm concerned about is the lack of diligence, and it's a volume business. And we talked
Right.
about transactional versus aspirational. Those firms
Yeah.
are clearly transactional. It's a process. It's a volume, and that offends me because we're dealing with people's lives. So I'm going to riff for a second.
Yeah,
if you let
do
me.
it. I want you to.
All right. So this gentleman has given me permission to talk about it. There was a gentleman I represented, and I get the backstory. The backstory is that he had a horrible, horrible event in his life, which I won't describe, but it was indescribable because I spent an hour talking about your mom, your dad, where'd you go to high school, tell me what happened. And he had a shoulder injury, and they said, well, we think you had a prior problem. You've been to this hospital, and we know you have because we've seen your records, and we're not going to do the surgery. And when we got the records, I asked him, I said, hey, did you go to this hospital? No, I never went to that hospital. That's just ridiculous. The insurance company just doesn't want to pay for it. But if I hadn't asked him about his trauma, I wouldn't know. That gentleman was in the hospital for a week about trauma that happened 20 years ago. So for me, he's no longer the client with the shoulder. He's the client with the trauma. That's how I look at things. And I'm very concerned that these large firms are not taking into the human aspect of everybody. I think life is about conversations. Life is about helping people. And I'm very concerned that that diminishes our profession. But I can't fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's somebody that you would have never known any of that story if you hadn't really dug in and got to know him more.
Every client comes in, okay? I ask them, tell me about your mom, tell me about your dad, tell me about your siblings, tell me about where'd you graduate, what'd you do then, what'd you do next? And I learned so much because the backstory is the front story. And if I'm really interested in that person, if I'm really interested in helping them out, I need to spend that time to know who they are.
Yeah. Tell me about, I don't know if you can talk about like some of the biggest victories that you've had and maybe even disappointments. Just curious.
Victories. Most of the victories that I really like are the ones where I in my opinion, were not a lot of money. There was a gentleman who was in his 20s. He got injured at work. They denied it. He had $1 million medical bill, and he's fine.
Wow.
$1 million. Work comp denied it, and there was no money in it. So when I took it on, he's fine. I mean, he went to the hospital for a week, and they got him fixed, and no permanency. But he just had a baby. He had no health insurance. And during the course of that litigation, I found out that one of the witnesses had a text message that was in direct opposition of the exact defense. It happened outside was the defense, and the text message said it happened inside. So catching that and then being able to help this gentleman with $1 million in his 20s with a baby, no health insurance. Guess what my fee was on that? $0.
Yeah.
For me, that's a tremendous victory.
It changed the course of his life.
Absolutely.
I mean, he'd be in debt the rest of his life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's another case that I remember. This guy came in and he had a horrible injury, fell off of a roof and hurt his back and didn't go to the doctor. And 2 years later, he comes to me right before the time period to file a claim. And I immediately got him into a doctor, had emergency surgery on his back. He called me up the other day and said that I'd saved his life. So, and guess what my fee was on that?
$0. Not much.
$15,000.
Yeah.
But again, those are the things that I will always remember because it's pretty easy to get $1 million claim if you've got a drunk driver driving a Budweiser truck and hits somebody and kills them. Those are not the claim. I mean, you should remember those claims, but that's not that difficult. So again, aspirational versus transactional, that would give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
When you're talking, one of the things I thought of was when you're talking to other attorneys about referring, clients and cases to you, what type of attorney would do that? Is like somebody in another type of practice, or who are you looking for when you're doing that?
I'm not looking for other attorneys at all.
Yeah.
They find me, I don't find them. I I don't really spread my wings a lot to that extent.
Yeah.
Most of the lawyers that send me cases know of me, but don't know me. I would say that a lot of the cases that are referred to me by other attorneys, I don't even know who they are. Like, who referred you over? John Jones. I don't know John. So to answer your question, it's opaque. It's not a clear vision. I don't really have that kind of a relationship with other attorneys. I just do my thing.
What are some of the trends that you see? It feels a little bit like the Wild West, especially in the PI area, car wrecks and all that stuff happening. We're going to have autonomous cars soon. I just feel like there's going to be all kinds of things happening with that. Who knows? We may be flying drones to work before too long,
I think you've hit on a big issue here. Since I started practicing law, the specialization of law, there are no general practitioners unless you're out in a very rural area. So specialization has really increased. But I think the other thing that's going to radically change the practice of law is AI, artificial intelligence.
Right. Didn't even think about that.
So you can put in depositions and other stuff and put it into an AI platform, and it will have an opening statement. You can put in all of the medical records, and they'll do a summary. All of these things we're now experiencing in the real world with AI is going to rapidly change the practice of law. Some people are going to be losers on this. Clerical staff will probably go out the door.
Yeah.
But I think AI is dramatic. I don't think we're ever going to see a decrease in advertising. So let me riff on that a little bit.
Yeah.
All right?
Go for it, man.
So when you look at insurance companies, where do they market? Well, they market at the country clubs, or they give them tickets to the Royals games. So they market in a different way. When I first started practicing law, the Supreme Court allowed us for the first time to advertise. So when I started practicing law in Johnson County, if you had a divorce, there were minimum amounts that you could charge. So, and that was almost a restraint of trade. So that this advertising has helped a lot of lawyers become good lawyers, and they're not caught in the old buddy system. But now it's turned into...
The pendulum swung too far, probably.
I definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all sick of seeing commercials every 5 minutes about somebody in a car wreck or any of those things, somebody in a monkey suit. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's obviously working for them because they're putting, I know what it costs to put spots on television, local television even, that it's not cheap. So they've got to be funding that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see hedge fund managers operating law law firms. I think we're going to see that. It's just like we do in any big business. You're going to see people that are going to. That's where we're headed. And I don't know that that's bad or good. I will tell you this, Brad. I strongly believe that a good lawyer will always be available and always wanted, regardless of the marketing. So I'm strongly of the belief that personal relationships, communication, regardless of the advertising, will be the driver of getting a lawyer.
You can't do that with AI.
Can't do that with AI. You got to meet me. You got to greet me. You got to be able to talk to somebody. You got to be able to shake their hand, look them in the face.
Yeah.
Empathize with them. All of that.
Right. So tell me about your future. What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years? What would you like to happen?
That's a really good question. I'm stuck. I'm 66 and a half. And I'm still enjoying the practice of law a little bit, but after 40 years, it's emotionally draining.
Yeah.
I have 2 children in college, but that's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for something aspirational. So my alternatives are as follows. 1, go golf and play Netflix. That's not possible. I'm not wired that way, right? Continue the practice of law until I die at my desk. Or 3, find something else that is aspirational. So I've been thinking about this for a long time, and one time said, somebody said, write down 5 things that you could do, and regardless of whatever you could do it or not, whether you had the money to. So I think if I had to pick one right now, again, aspirational, changing lives, I would probably be a high school teacher.
Yeah.
And I would probably, more likely than not, coach some sport as well. Because I have a rule in basketball, another rule. I'm here to make you a better basketball player, but the main rule is I'm here to make you a better person.
Yes.
So I'm going to riff on that a little bit,
Yeah.
if I'm allowed.
Yes. Darn right.
When I had my kids' basketball teams and other basketball teams, they're required to do 3 things. First, they write a gratitude list. I'm so happy and grateful for on Maslow's theory of hierarchy: food, shelter, safety. Second thing they have to do, they have to write 5 core values that they want to live by. Third thing they have to do, they have to be of service. Typically, we'll go to a homeless shelter and give food to them.
Yeah.
This is my way of introducing you to being a better person as well as a better basketball player. I don't know if that'll resonate with them, but I do think that that will help them become better human beings.
You know, it's interesting, like the parallels. By the way, we work with City Union Mission, so we're doing TV spots, and they're doing a podcast, and really, really cool. I love what they do, you know, and how they help people. But the parallels to a good basketball player and the idea of giving. You know, you think about the guys that are so kind of full of themselves, and you know, it's all about me. Those aren't the best basketball players. The best basketball players are the ones that give up the ball, that make things happen for other people. You know, that's I always love that aspect. I almost got more out of making a great dish and a great, you know, pass than I did making a 3-pointer. I mean, there's something more. It's just about that, and it's like that. And in sports, if you don't have that kind of mentality, your team's not going to be very good.
Absolutely. You want an unselfish team. If I was going to, you know, everybody has a mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be unselfish. Selflessness is important. So when you play pickup basketball, you know, you may have a really guy that's talented. The guy that you hate is the guy that knows basketball. He boxes you out. He plays defense. He helps out all the time. He's always in the right spot. You're going to have a hard time getting by him. He's always going to hustle. That's the guy that you never want to play and pick up basketball.
Yeah.
So I want to help. I'm going to be selfless. I'm going to be a part of the team. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And those are foundational things. If you're learning in high school, I mean, you're going to take that on in your job, in your marriage, your family, working with other people. I mean, that's foundational core value that everybody should have.
And I think that's why we get some of these things in youth basketball that I coach are so important, because the parents are caught up in Johnson County, at least if we're talking about Johnson County parents, you know. You got to be on a club basketball team
Yes.
or a club baseball team. I want them to be more than that. I want them to be better than that. I want them to be selfless. I want them to be better human beings. And I have that opportunity to maybe expand that horizon. So for me, that's a big deal.
Yeah. It's an interesting state that youth sports is in. I didn't mean to go down that path, but it's really, I'd love to get your comments on that. You know, we went through all that too. I mean, my boys played club ball. Briley, my middle son, I mean, he really, you know, he had a goal of getting a college, you know, degree and signing at a college. And, you know, we worked hard at that. I mean, we went to all over the Midwest doing showcases and all that stuff. And what I look back at now is that was a money-making machine for them. It did not help us at all. Didn't have any effect on him getting signed. None of that had anything to do with it. It ended up being a personal relationship, and a coach getting introduced to us is how he got signed.
Yeah, I think you always wonder about the people who spend $100,000 traveling the country for their soccer team so that he could be on Hutchinson County Community College. Wouldn't he be better off, or she be better off at a good university, or a plumber, electrician?
Yeah.
I want to tell you that there are 2 different worlds in America, at least here in Kansas and Kansas City. So we have the Johnson County model, and then we have the Wyandotte County model. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are 2 different worlds. They don't have, if they have club teams as a general rule, they only get them on them because They're really good.
Yeah, right.
They don't have the money that we have. I'll give you an example of this. When I was coaching high school basketball, I was coaching the freshman team, and I had a Johns County attitude, and this was a team in Wyandotte County, high school team, and I got a call saying, hey, you need to come down and pick up the kids. The bus didn't show up. Well, my Johns County attitude was, well, why don't the parents take them? Tim, they don't have a car. Well, why don't they just drive themselves? Tim, they don't have a car. So that was a wake-up call. We have the Johns County model, which is extremely, you have a lot of money.
Affluent, a lot of money. Yes.
Yeah. And then you have the Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Missouri model, where these people are just, they don't have those kind of resources. And it's a very different world.
Yeah.
I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. You know, I even see, you know, the kid that stayed with us with Sporting, you know, they're from Springfield. His family's from Springfield. They were literally driving from Springfield to up here to Sporting every day. So he'd go to school. They'd get out of school, drive up. He'd make it to practice. Dad would stick around. Dad or mom would stick around for, you know, the 2 or 3 hour practice, and they drive back, go to school the next day. That they were so committed to him, you know, being able to play soccer at that level, and it's like just crazy. And I think about what they gave up. You know, I mean, their whole family sacrificed, and you know, he ended up moving up here, and that's how he ended up coming to live with us and stuff. And you know, we really wanted to try to help their family. You know, come stay with us if you want to. We'll, you know, get together. You know, try to promote their family, because we knew, Trace and I knew, it was like we could never do that with our kids.
Yeah, I think I'd be the opposite of that. I don't believe that you should put all of your faith in one sport to the detriment of your family.
Yeah.
I've seen that model quite a bit, where you have one good athletic kid, you have 3 kids, and they're traveling all over the United States with that kid.
Yeah.
I don't see that as a good model. I think it would be better, in my opinion, if you just let that kid stay where he's at. There's enough talent around where he'll be fine either way, and help him become a better student, a better human being. So if I was going to say something about that, I would say you've overvalued sports and you've undervalued life. And that comes with experience. I think, you know, when you see your kids at 30, they're not too worried about the fact that you travel them across the United States. They are worried that you didn't spend enough time with them.
Yeah, that's very true. And you don't, most people don't see that till afterwards.
Yes.
You know, and we were guilty of that. You know, I mean, Tracy and I both, we went all over the Midwest. I mean, playing in tournaments and showcases and all that stuff, you know, and gave up a lot. And we look back at it and it's like, why did we do that? You know, but at the time it felt like, man, we better do this.
Well, don't you think a little bit of that is about us as opposed to
Probably.
them?
Yeah, because I wanted to be an NBA player, you know.
Yeah. Well, we want our kids to be the best, right?
Yeah.
And so we sacrifice for that, but we have to remember what the ultimate goal is. We rent them, we don't own them, and when we rent them, we need to spend the time with them, and a good quality time.
Yeah. All right. So shift gears, and we're about done.
Okay.
But talk a little bit about our old group of guys, you know, because I'm hoping that they all get to see this. I got to see Buford the other day. We had lunch, and Scotty B, every once in a while I would see him. Kendall I haven't seen for a while. I used to run into Kendall at the baseball field, actually. His son was playing baseball at the time. Do you keep up with any of the
I do.
guys?
I saw. I texted Kendall the other day.
Did you?
He texted me. One of the Grateful Dead members died, and he remembered that.
Yeah.
I don't see Dave so much, Dave Pulford so much.
Yeah.
I saw him about a couple years ago. I always talk to Scotty B. This was a diverse group of people.
It was, yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes I'd have to take Kenny to a basketball game, and he didn't. I don't know what it was. He couldn't get there. But Kenny would go get a Big Mac and a Coke and then score 34 points.
I know it.
And if you looked at him, he's probably about 6'3" and 250, and you looked at him saying, you know, this guy's not any good. And the next thing you know, he's hitting 30 points, and he was a talker.
Yeah.
You had Pulford, who had a great 3-point shot. We had you, who could beat anybody off the dribble and a 3-point shot. We had Scotty, who kind of has that funky left-handed shot of his.
Yeah, Kevin McHale. I always thought he was kind of a
Yes.
Kevin McHale type player. Yeah,
But it was kind of a ragtag group of guys, but
Yeah.
everybody knew the role, and it was. We had, I had a postgraduate degree. Kenny did not. It was just this really interesting group of people that just
Yeah.
got together, and we all coalesced. So, there's a couple of things. I'm on your podcast, so I'm going to say some things about Brad.
you don't have to do that.
No. The first time I met Brad, he doesn't remember this. I was at a high school, I think in Olathe. I'm pretty sure that you played at Raytown South. And you had a ponytail on, and I remember saying after playing against you, I go, I'll never, ever, ever be that good.
Oh my gosh.
Because you were that good, and I mean, you really were. And I remember walking away from that saying, that guy's so good. I'd never told you that. I'd never revealed this to you, but I never forgot that high school experiment with you. And it was, you were one of the better athletes that I ever saw play.
Oh man, you're making me blush.
No, it's true. It's all
I
true.
appreciate it. I loved basketball, and that was like my thing, And I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that? So, a bunch of the guys played in a 3-on-3 tournament.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I didn't play in this one, but they were downtown.
I was there.
And you remember the place called Soki's?
Yes.
So that's where I got my nickname. So I still have that nickname, and I remember because Kendall was on the team, and he's like, "Hey man, could you go in and get me a Coke or something like that?" So the bar, which is right across the street from the 3-on-3, the court that they were playing on, was called Soki. So I ran in there from that day on. I think Buford started calling me that maybe or something, but I became Soki at that point.
It's funny you should say that because I thought Soki meant that you were soaking 3-point shots all the time. I never knew that until today.
No, it was a bar.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a history of Kansas City, a bar down in downtown. I don't think it's there anymore, but
I think you should take the Sokis for the threes, okay? Because I think
Okay.
that's more accurate.
well, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This is really awesome, and if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, like if they did have an issue, how would they do that? I know we got your website up on the screen here, but
Well, you can call my office. You can always call my cell, which my wife will hate right now, 913-709-9907. Remember, I only do 2 things, so don't call me up about a divorce. I do auto crashes, preventable auto crashes, not accidents, and a lot of work-related injuries.
Okay. So the last thing I've got to have you do. So you might not know this, but I was actually I used to play golf with the guy that ran the Miami Heat television network. Okay, that was back in those days a little bit, but we would walk around and I'd always say "in a world" like that. So we just goof around and stuff. So one day I get a call from him. His name was Ed Philamy, and he says, "Brad, I want you to audition to be the voice for the Miami Heat." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And seriously, and I'm like, "You're kidding." No, I really want you to do it. So I came in this studio and I did Black is Back like that. And I became the voice of the Miami Heat.
Oh, my God.
So for 4 years I
I did not know that.
yeah, so they'd walk on the court, and in their opens and stuff like that. I'd voice all of their opens. And one of the coolest things that I did was I got asked when Dwayne Wade was going to leave the Heat. He actually did end up leaving, but they asked me to voice 3 videos that Pat Riley wanted Dwayne to get. So he wrote the voiceovers. I did the voice on it, and I was the voice that Dwayne heard to say, "You need to stay in Miami. You need to, here's the reasons." So really cool. Like not very many people got to hear that, but I was the voice that he ended up leaving, so it didn't work. So, but pretty cool. So anyway, so this podcast is called "In a World with Real Media." So you've got to do your movie voice. Let's see if you can do the movie voice.
Well, can I introduce you as a basketball star?
Sure, you can do whatever.
All right,
so
here we go.
The key is you got to get close to the mic and you got to talk real breathy, like real close, like this.
All right. Shooting guard, Brad Burrow from the University of Real Media. Once again, Brad Burrow.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. This is really fun. That's going to end up on our Real Media reel somewhere. You know that, right?
I hope so.
Okay. Yeah, it will. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you joining us. In a world with Real Media, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Share it. Subscribe, share it with your friends. You know, this is such riveting content. Everybody's going to want to see this content.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, this is unbelievable. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. This has been In a World with Real Media. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to subscribe on iTunes and follow Real Media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn so you never miss an episode.